Hi, it's Matt Bisogno here again. Thank you very much if you've been following these videos all week. In this final episode, I'm going to try and bring the reports and the race card content together and see if we can't find a couple of half decent bets in the handicap races on Friday.
So I haven't looked at Friday's card at all yet, and it's perfectly possible that there isn't anything I like. So caveat emptor, buyer beware. Apologies in advance if this ends up being 30 or 40 minutes without anything of particular note by the end of it. That some days is the way of it, isn't it? If it's not there, we can't force it, and there's a reasonable lesson in that, especially this time of year. Okay, so I'm going to look at Friday's racing, and I'm going to look at handicaps only. So I've got my filters up here, and on the handicap one, I'm just going to check that. I'm not interested in 3-year-old handicaps at this stage, because we don't know how they've trained on from 2 to 3, and a lot of these lads have got, and lasses have got, plenty of improvement in them. So I'd rather focus on things that are a little bit more established in form terms. So that leaves me with this 4-year-old plus handicap, this one and this one. So 3 at Lingfield, and then down at Newmarket we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got seven races to go at. So plenty to get stuck into. The going at Lingfield is standard to slow. If they get any rain overnight, it'll probably go standard. So I will use a combination of those two goings when I'm looking at the data there, as you'll see in a minute. What else do I want to do before we start? Nothing, I don't think. I'm going to go to the reports. Actually, I've already set up trainer snippets report for tomorrow, as you can see here, and it's on all. And if you remember from an earlier video, I said that you need to be careful with the win percentage that you set. If you use IV, impact value, that will vary the win percentage depending on what the average is for that particular snippet. So in this case, this seems to work quite well. I'm just going to drop that down to 15 to get a bit more action. So let's sort by actual over expected, and I'm going to show all even. I'm just looking for a few horses that I hopefully remember as we go through. So we've got Badale there in the 5 o'clock at Lingfield, which is one of our races. These two at Jane Chapel High ones look too long a price, really. Dubai Instinct in the 4:10, that is one of our races. The 5 o'clock at Lingfield again, so the George Baker pair. The 150 at Newmarket, past the Vino, gets a couple of ticks. Spirit of May in the 6:30 Newmarket, he's on the list. Not that one, that's a non-runner. And not that one, that's a 3-year-old handicap. Parsavino again, right, so Parsavino gets three early mentions. I could look at, I'll have a quick look at trainer jockey combo as well. I mean, if I had more time, I'd go through all the reports with you, but obviously I am conscious of trying to keep the video vaguely consumable from end to end. So we've got a few training jockey combos. Again, I'm on the course 5 year here, which is an angle I like. I'm just going to make that handicap, update that. Actual over expected sortation, and let's have a look at what we've got here. We've got one more in the 5 o'clock, Englishman. That's a 3-year-old Hector's race. The game is on in the 4:25. That's one of our races. 5:35 is a 3-year-old handicap. 4:10 at Newmarket. Sky Max would be one of ours, and that's it. Right. So those are the ones that I'm going to try to remember as we go through the card now. So let's get started. We'll start at Lingfield with the 350, which is a 1.5 mile handicap for older horses. Just going to what can I do here? We'll just bear me 1 second. Getting some stuff in here that I don't want. Turn off notifications. Okay, sorry about that. Right, so we've got a 1.5 mile handicap, 12 runners, 1 handicap debutant, one of these making its debut after 2 starts. So immediately I want to know how Harry Dunlop does with his cap debs, and the answer is none from 25, 3 places. And this is a 6-to-1 shot. He's none from 10 with last time out winners as well, and 1 from 43 off a layoff. This horse is up in class, and it's 6-to-1, and that would not be for me. Notwithstanding that he obviously can step forward and win. I wouldn't be interested in that one personally. I'm going to go to the Instant Expert to begin with, and I'm going to change the going range from standard to slow to standard. So standard to slow. And I'm going to change it to place form, as I like to do. I've just got to adjust the window here if I can. And hopefully that's a little bit better. Let's try. There we go. Okay, it's a bit small now, but we can hopefully work with this. Right, so I'm looking for Lingfield course form because it is quite a tricky little track, and we can see that Rydan, who's a big price, was 3rd over a 1.5 miles at Kempton, held up off what was likely a slow pace in a small field. It's probably better than that. 2 from 2 in the frame at this track over 2 miles, so he stays further. Quite interesting at a price. More obvious are Imperium, who was 2nd on his only start at the track, in the last 2 years at least, and Crime Wave, who's won twice, albeit over a 1.25 miles. This race is a 1.5 miles. He's stepping up in trip for the first time, so I'd be interested in his breeding, whether there are any clues there, and also whether his trainer offers any clues in terms of staying races. Trainer's form is 12% win rate and 40% place, which is above his all handicap. So that's a positive for him. Last time out win is a positive also, and not terrible off a layoff. And Crime Wave, so Crime Wave would be interesting. We're going to have a look at the pace, see how the pace shapes up. Now it looks a bit all over the place, but if we sort by draw, the DR column, it will suddenly make a lot more sense. This is on the heat map view, so I'm overlaying here the draw and the pace into the same view, and we can see that inside draws, particularly forward placed horses from an inside draw, do rather well, and that brings in Brighton Pier, but more notably Natty Knight and Illa Bella Fact. Crime Wave is drawn wider, and the favourite, Imperium, is drawn wider still. I have to be honest and say I'm not getting a good feel about this race. I'm not really inclined to bet on it, and I'm going to move on. The next race I'm going to look at is the 425, which is a mile handicap. And we have the game is on here, which interestingly is having his first start for Simon Dow today, a trainer who was flagged in the trainer snippets. Relatively low strike rate trainer overall, but he's had 1 winner from 8 starters on a trainer switch. Not brilliant off a layoff. In fact, these numbers are pretty quiet generally. The only plus you'd give him is his course form, 12 and 13%, as opposed to a sort of 9% overall. So he's definitely performs better at Lingfield, which is close to, I think he's based in Epsom still, so it's a local track for him. That's all I want to say about that one. Again, let's go across to Instant Expert. Let's sort it on the course form. We've got a few. I just want to change that to standard slow again. The Game Is On has actually got reasonable form at the track. He was previously, as you can see there, with Sir Mark Prescott. Luke Morris, who rides him here, clearly knows him well, and he's dropping back in trip, which is kind of interesting for a horse that led and was only picked off in the last furlong in January. So he's 10-1, and you know, he might be a shade of value at that price, maybe not. I mean, I'm not massively excited about him. The favourite, if I sort by the odds column, the favourite is Fortune and Glory, which has been out of the frame in all 3 starts at the track. Not beaten far here. Sorry, in this middle run, beaten 1.5 lengths, less than 3 lengths in this race. But these are in the same grade, same course, distance and class. Was favourite here. Was a 5-1 shot here. Any horse can win any race, but he's £6 above his last winning mark, we can see here, and his track form is just not very exciting. So if he wins, fair enough, but I'd definitely be looking to be against Fortune and Glory. The second favourite has only run once at the track, over course and distance, and in this grade, and he was a close-up third. That wouldn't put you off at all. His overall profile for his price is skinny enough. He's had a few goes now at different all-weather surfaces. Again, in a fairly competitive, lowish grade handicap, I'd be looking to go beyond him. Fairs Poet ran well in September last year, ran horribly when leading in February of this year. Just going to have a look at the pace, because there's a few there that might want to go on. I'm going to take the heat map off, actually. It's a little bit it's not helping me. We can see that Lead and Prominent is the run style, so you don't want to be too far back. Held up 1 from 37 on standard to slow. That will change when I put that in there. You can see even though it's now 52, it's 52 from 877, and it's still front rank is kind of where you want to be. So that's a Fairs Poet scores a point there. The Game Is On may well be close up as well. Those two are more interesting than some in there. Let's have a look at their form. He does have a bit of a tendency to finish second. That drop back in trip is quite interesting. I quite like horses dropping back in trip from 9 and 10 furlongs to a mile. It's a big angle actually in the States in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, the turn back angle they call it, and so that might be interesting for The Game Is On. I'm kind of warming to him in spite of his trainer's middling record. What else have we got? Ventura Gold's got a couple of my QT angles here. Just have a quick look at those. Steve Gollins, both related angles actually, but flagging up the trainer there. His first runner of the season. Interesting. He's got quite a few positives down in the snippets here. Quite profitable on a number of angles, including off a layoff. So he's had 4 out of 15 make the frame, and 2 of them win off a layoff. Ventura Gold, a massive price. He's drawn in the car park. That's a knock, isn't it? It's going to be quite hard for him. He's likely to be wide into the turn. I think it'd be frustrating if he wins, but I don't like that car park draw. Even though he might just be a little bit a little bit better than his price. Voltaic is changing to Bernard Llewellyn for the first time, second start in a handicap, so we should have a look at his snippets data. A lot of zeros here. That's really not exciting me, and fair play if he wins, but it wouldn't be for me on the trainer angles. Fair's Poet was the other one we needed to look at, and we can see that Marco Botti in good form. He was a bit unlucky in the big sprint at Newcastle. As shortly before I recorded this, his favourite there got caught in a pocket, flew late, just failed, finished second. Again, we got this kind of 14-day data that doesn't really tell the whole story, because it's a bit too early to be categorical about such things. I think Fair's Poet, trap 5, probably going to be front rank. Of the top of the market, he makes the most appeal anyway, and the game is on. He can his wide draw is mitigated by the fact that Luke will probably go forward with him. Now, if a few of them go forward, then they could go a bit too quick too early, but I kind of like those two. I just want to have a quick look at Kindergarten Cop as well, who has got a decent record at the track, and is ridden by Gigi's jockey David Probert, who is riding with confidence at the moment. He won over this course and distance, but in Class 6, then was second in this grade over 10 furlongs. Stepping back, he wasn't beaten a million miles, missed the break there, stayed on all too late. You kind of forgive that a little bit, but if you look at his overall mile form, I did win here, again Class 6, and he's back to that sort of mark again, 67 versus 65, but this is a higher grade. Again, at 10 to 1, he wouldn't be without a chance. I'd rather take a couple at prices in a race like this than go with the favourite. So looking at the betting here, I actually don't have any problem with backing multiple horses in a race as long as they're largely away from the top of the market. I'd be happy enough to take Fair's Poet and The Game Is On. I'd probably back those two. I mean, potentially Kindergarten Cop as well, but most likely The Game Is On and Fair's Poet against the field there, I think. The next race is the 5 o'clock. That's the last race I want to look at Lingfield. I don't really want to look at the betting at this stage. It's a 6 furlong sprint where if we put it on standard to slow, I'm taking a bit of a flyer on the ground here, and that might undo me. You can see that when the going is standard, the front is the place to be, but when it's standard to slow, there's only been a couple of races, and leaders are none from 2, with a prominent and a mid-division. So, I mean, 2 races, let's put it all together so we've got a bit more data to go at, notwithstanding that we might be diluting the value of it in so doing. I definitely want to be against a hold-up horse, so Mamilius, who was one of our trainer snippets horses, he's got a lot to do in that context. Royal Dynasty is a horse in form for a jockey in form, and shaped like the most likely leader, although may well not get his own way in front. From trap 5, he's got a chance to get across to the rail. He doesn't want to be missing the break. A comment that applies to pretty much all of those that race handy. Royal Dynasty's record at the track, first, second. The second was over 7 furlongs. He was driven inside final furlong, arguably didn't get home there. He's up in the weights since then. He's up £6. His 6 furlong form He won his last two, as we know, at this track. I mean, if he gets out, he's an obvious contender. The form actually of that last race has worked out well. 2 winners, 20% on 10 runs. 6 of them made the frame since. So yeah, I mean, he's an obvious contender. Just have a look at this none from 2 on standard to slow, both at Kempton. Perfectly possible he just doesn't like Kempton. One of them was over 7 furlongs as well, so I'm happy enough to overlook that. Real Estate is a bit of a standing dish here, so too Englishman. Englishman was Milton Bradley's horse, was on our trainer snippets as well. He is a winner and a second, both in Class 6. This is a Class 4. That would be a reservation for me, notwithstanding that he's pretty consistent in this at this distance. As you can see here, he's never run in Class 4 before. I'm going to speculate that it's a bridge too far for him. Sword Exceed is a horse I like, but you can see we're on the place data here, and he's none from 6 in Class 4, and he's run pretty poorly every time, really. So again, he'd probably go and win now, but that none from 6 in the grade and 1 from 4 at the track, which was last time over course and over the distance, albeit in Class 5, where it's set up, and it could set up again for him here. He's got stall 12 as well, which is pretty horrible. If we put the heat map back on here, it's not really against anybody, to be honest. So the fact, if he can be front rank, he can probably mitigate his wide draw, but generally speaking, I'd be a little bit reluctant to get involved with a horse drawn 12 of 12. Let's have a look at the percentage of rivals beaten. It's not, I mean, as you saw on the colour chart, there's not a massive swing, but sort of stalls 3 to 5 are pitching at about a 55% percentage of rivals beaten, whereas the wide outside is nearer 45. It is in a competitive race, that'd be enough to put me off. The horse that I quite like then is Royal Dynasty. He's up in grade, but he deserves that. He's got obviously a very progressive profile, got a great jockey on board, well drawn, has early speed. Yeah, I mean, he just ticks an awful lot of boxes, so it'd be interesting to see how he goes. I think he'd be a good bit shorter if he was trained by a more fashionable trainer. So that's that one. Let's go over to Newmarket now, and we've got 4 races there, so I'm going to have to blast through them. The first is a 6 furlong handicap. With 11 runners, because the top one is a non-runner. And again, one of the things that that I really like about Instant Expert is, as illustrated here, we can immediately see this is a very competitive race. Certainly looking at the place form. If we put it on the win form, we can still see there's loads of them that the conditions set up for, including Magical Memory, I'm guessing he's dropping out of pattern races. Yeah, he ran in a Class 2 handicap there, but before that he was running in Group 1s and Group 3s. So he's been off for 2 years. Who knows what he is? This race is just too competitive. I mean, looking at the win data, you can make a case for loads of them. Perhaps Flavius Titus, with the 2 course wins and 3rd on the other start, all in this grade, all over 6 furlongs, all on fast ground, all of them early season, all of them 2 off 95. He's 97 here. He's obviously in good form, but it's a very competitive race, and too competitive for me. 410 is the next one on our list, and this is a 0 to 90 mile-and-a-half handicap. The top one is Sky Max, who was on our trainer snippets report. He gets a report angles line as well for Rafe Beckett's and Harry Bentley's trainer jockey combination at the track. 24% is sparkling, big profit figures. I mean, he's down in class here as well. He's interesting on his first start of the season. He's not down in trip from the last run, but generally he's been racing over further. So he's definitely of interest. Rafe has started quietly, it's fair to say, and he had a fancied runner in a 2-year-old race today that didn't run up to expectations either. That's again, I've been saying that you don't want to be too categorical about trainer form at this stage of the season, but that not even a place so far would be a reservation, particularly for a trainer who normally does fairly well off a layoff, although relative to his overall form slightly less well. I'm probably going to watch that one, even though he's got one of his handicap job jocks according to my query tool. There's a few handicap debutants in here. Look closely for Varian and Atzani. First starting a handicap 20%. Very high strike rate trainer. An obvious chance, but as you can see from the AE column, the market never misses these, and they don't really offer any value. So he's a horse that obviously can win, but he's not a value proposition so to do. Dubai Instinct was on our trainer report list. Ryan Moore for Brian Meehan takes the eye. Ryan for Brian. 6 to 1 is a price that I can play at if things justify it. Meehan's not brilliant off the layoff. As you can see, his star has fallen somewhat in recent years. 8.5% strike rate is not where he would have wanted to be. Started slowly, but on very few runners. Has a good record at the track, better than 10% against an 8.5% overall record. So that's an interesting angle in. And last time out winners as well. I mean, it's a 10% strike rate. It's so 9 out of 10 lose. But a third of them are hitting the frame. This is a sort of each way mild interest. Further down the list, we've got Edinburgh Castle here at the bottom now. Andrew Boulding is in terrific form. His 14 and 30 day, which are the same, of course, are very good, and they're going to be better after today. He had a 20, I think it was a 25 to 1 winner today. And another horse ran second, ran very well. So the Boulding Yard's in great form. Handicap debutants, 13.5%. Not fantastic, but playable. Again, not missed by the market, not by any stretch of the imagination. Sylvester de Souza is not going to hurt this horse's cause. Up 2 grades, but he's running against some fairly exposed horses, and he's one of the few with plenty of scope to improve, and he's off bottom weight here, notwithstanding that there's only £8 between top and bottom. It's quite a compressed handicap. So the second favourite, Edinburgh Castle, is interesting, and the other one that was interesting for me is Dubai Instinct. Just going to have a look at the pace here. If my machine gets a move on, let's get that heat map off. The draw shouldn't be material in a 1.5 mile race. So we can see that Sky Max and Jersey Wonder will probably take them along. Dubai Instinct looks like he's going to be in the van as they say, just behind the leaders most likely. From there he will have every chance and few excuses, I imagine, and he would be the pick in that race. The next race I want to look at is the 5:55. I've got two more races to look at, and I'm going to, if things are not exciting straight away, I'm going to whiz on because I'm conscious that we're at the half-hour mark. So we've got a non-runner at the bottom here. So we've got a 10-runner, 6 furlong, Class 3 sprint handicap, mostly exposed. Just got the one. Let's just put both my report angles and QT angles. So I've got a trainer to note in, I think is it Peter Hedger? I'm not sure about that. Gunmetal is a horse for course, 3 wins from 10 starts at the track. Golden Apollo is on our horse profiles list. Aladale has a sire who performs well. Dubawi performs well on fast ground, performs well on every ground. And Mark Johnston off a layoff is also in good form currently. Unfortunately, if I sort by odds, you'll see that they are basically all of the fancied runners in the race. So I'm not sure I'm going to have a route in here. I'll just put this on place. It doesn't look, I mean, again, this is another thing that's definitely worth mentioning in the context of Instant Expert. A lot of these horses have either got zeros or for the number of runs for one of these components, we've got, a lot of zeros here and here. We've got a bunch of ones here and a 2 here. In other words, there isn't a huge amount of form to go on. I don't really like this race. I don't think I know enough about it in the context of the runners. This bungee jump, interestingly, is a non-runner. I'm just going to take that one out. So if I click the red X, that's going to exclude it, and hopefully it will exclude it from the pace view as well now. So we can see that's changed the pace prediction to even. I think actually these horses on the front, I imagine it's going to be even to steady, and the horses near the front, I'm guessing this Danny Tudhope's going to take the Johnston horse forward as well. Deep Intrigue would probably be most interested. I wouldn't want to be out the back in this field, because I think they might just, the front runners might just quicken and slip away. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gunmetal with his good track form or Deep Intrigue, who I expect to race prominently for a stable that started very well and obviously a top class jockey. I'd imagine those two would be, if you had those two in the play spot, you'd still be going, if this was in the first 6, which of course it isn't with these 10 race mega cards. Right, so I'm going to quickly whiz on to the 6:30 now. This is the last race I'm going to look at today. I'm conscious that this has been kind of a very skirting overview, and I haven't really gone into any depth in any of the races, and it might be that I've tried to cover too much ground and in so doing failed to add value. Well, I hope that's not the case, but apologies if you feel it is. It probably wouldn't be, and it probably would be a legitimate grievance if you feel that way. Nevertheless, let's persist one more time. Just trying to remember if we had any of these on our list. Spirit of May was one on our list, wasn't it? A horse in obvious form for Roger Teal. Andrea Atzani, an interesting booking. Has won his last 2 on the all-weather. Steps up in class, changes to turf. Ran 5th here, only beaten a length last autumn. So that wouldn't put you off, although he is £11 higher now. That's quite a big weight rise. We can see that it's a fairly competitive race. Let's have a look at the distance form. And I tend to sort by percentage, but I'm also looking for the number of runs as well. So in this case, for instance, I'd probably be giving these two, Betsy Trotter and Equitation, as much credence as Danzan, because they're 55 and 56% place rate. is achieved on around 10 runs, whereas Danzan's is on 3. So obviously the more times you've shown you can do something, the more confidence a punter like us can have that it can happen again. Equitation has quite a nice profile for the race. The ground might be a slight reservation. That was a big field, 22 runners there. He did win in a 16-runner field. This Hans Solo Berger form line's worked out. The winner won yesterday, I think it was. Fast ground, when he's been beaten in fast ground, he was beaten less than 3 lengths in a 16-runner race there, worth 46 grand. He's beaten a length here over 5. He won here over 6. Sorry, won at Ascot over 6 this trip. So his going form's actually pretty good. He's got a nice profile for the race. He's up 7 since the last time. What else can we see? He's been off for a while, so how does Stuart Williams get on off a layoff? Not bad. He's obviously had a couple of big priced winners. It wouldn't put me off the layoff. He's not had enough runners this season to be worried about a 0 from 3. Track form is pretty poor, in fairness. Although plenty of them have hit the frame. That would be a slight reservation. But this lad has shown that he has got his own track form. 1 from 2, and he ran, he wasn't placed here, but he was beaten a length in 4th. So he might didn't reach leaders, and that was over 5, and this is going to be over 6. So I quite like equitation, or equitation. I think again, he wouldn't want to be too far back early, but assuming he can go in the van, I mean, he's 10 to 1, and I'd be happy to take a chance at that sort of a price in what's probably quite an open race. He's certainly got a form profile that fits the race, and maybe he's got a bit more to offer. So that's equitation is worth a second look in the last. Danzan was on our list as well, actually, and he's a trainer change. The trainer change 1 from 30, only 1 other one placed, is not good at all. Tim Easterby started really well, so it'd be interesting to see if there was money for that. He doesn't bring too many down to Newmarket, and they run pretty much in line with his overall form. I prefer equitation, who incidentally is dropping in class as well. That's another interesting check box for him ticked. I wonder about the trainer-jockey combination as well. Just 1 run. They've teamed up in the last year. Bentley and Williams made the frame. Again, Bentley rides the track well. Equitation's it would be interesting. So that's it. We're ticking around towards 40 minutes. That's more than enough. To be honest, it's not the best day's racing to be trying to do a video like this, and I did want to sort of bring everything together, the reports and the tools on the page. There isn't a draw bias at Newmarket. There is a pace bias towards front runners. Lingfield, there is a pace bias towards the front generally, and an inside draw bias at shorter trips. Lingfield is a bit of a specialist track. If you're a few lengths off the pace when they slingshot off the home turn, some horses with a good gear change can really make up some ground quickly. That's the kind of attribute set to have there. We didn't look at sectional data, but if you look at sectional data for horses there, you can see horses that finish fast. They might well be interesting at Lingfield. So there's so much more to show you and to do around the GG's Gold website. This is just a very small snapshot. I'd encourage you to look at the user guide. I would encourage you to watch other videos which are on your My GG's page, particularly the 4 video set that begins with getting started. Why don't I point you to them now rather than talking about it? So the user guide is here. The videos are here, starting with setting yourself up to succeed. That's a really important video, I think, because we've got to, you know, we all love horse racing, and if you're paying for a subscription to GG's Gold, that means that you know that free race cards are not giving you what you need. They're not giving you enough information. But we also need to be mindful of the fact that if you're currently a losing punter, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You've paid for a race card, you are committed to being better, good for you, and I genuinely believe that you're in the right place and you've got every chance of being better. But being better, the first step to being better if you're a losing punter is breaking even. The second step is to go from breaking even to making a profit. The third step is then getting bets on and all that sort of stuff. So you've got to take it step by step. You've got to deal with the art of the possible. Most importantly, and I'm deliberately going to close on this, most importantly, you've got to enjoy it. The start of this series, we picked out a horse called Zodiacos, who won at 22-1, and the best judge in the world can't pick those horses every day or even twice a week. So it's very serendipitous that did win, but you could see why it would win. And one of the things that Gold gives us is the confidence to back a horse at a price if it's got a profile. Equitation is a 10-1 shot with a really solid profile there. There's a couple of others earlier on in this video as well that are similar. They may all get stuffed, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Over time, these horses offer great value, and if you stick with it over time, you will find your betting improves immeasurably. And I really hope you've got something from this video series. I know it's been quite long in places, and maybe particularly this one. I'll do some more videos from time to time as the season warms up, and I'll certainly try to show a few more of the tools around the site. We haven't looked at the query tool, we haven't looked at the bet tracker. These are really good tools. There's information in your MyGGs that tell you how to use them. So get stuck in. Nobody uses everything. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just use the bits that you're comfortable with. Start with a few reports. Start with the bits on the race card that I've shown you. And if you never use anything else, you've probably got plenty to go with there. Go out there. Certainly loads of value for the subscription charge. There are similar services that cost more than £100 a month, and they're not terrible value. They're just terrible value when compared with GG's. So that's enough from me. I really hope you've enjoyed this. The best of luck with your weekend wagers and going forwards. If you've got any questions or comments, leave a comment below the video or drop us an email and we'll be happy to help. Thank you very much for subscribing and for watching. Matt Bisogno saying bye for now.